and welcome to my podcast where I invite you to run with me after memories and shape them into stories. On this show, I'll also share samples of my writing and interesting moments from everyday life. I'm your host, rooroosig, and you're listening to my podcast, The Story Chaser. Welcome back, my super duper loyal listeners. It feels really good to be back behind the mic. I'm in a very interesting part of my life right now, and I'm not going to go into why, but I have a lot of time to write, and I was determined to get this episode recorded because the last time that I did was in April. So here I am now. Do not trip over what is behind you. Isn't that like such a cool quote? I read it recently and it really spoke to me. And it falls in line with the whole, I'll let it go that it was April. It was the last time I did an episode. Boop, past that, forward. I'm recording tonight. I'm thrilled to be back. And I have something I think pretty neat to share in tonight's piece of writing. I want to dedicate tonight's episode to the two Aarons. To have one of you is cool, but to have both is a true blessing. And I just love you gals, my tribe. I got to thinking recently about the movies, going to the movies, and I found myself back in this memory of the first film I ever saw in the theater. It was E.T. E.T. was huge, you guys. Early 80s. He was everywhere. Everywhere you turn. Grocery store, out on the street, marquees, clothing, everywhere. E.T. paraphernalia. I had the t-shirt with the round rubbery logo around the front. And I even had that little pleathery doll. I carried him everywhere. And I loved E.T. so much, but I hadn't seen the film yet, So my mom decided to take me to the theater and see it. And I truly loved 30 minutes or so of that film until the first time the audience, along with Elliot, sees E.T. I'm only drawing from memory here. I didn't look it up or anything, but I believe how it goes is Elliot rolls a ball into a shed and the ball rolls back out. Then he drops his flashlight. Maybe he tripped and fell or something. And it shines on a startled E.T. who, in that scene, looked nothing like this little doll I was carrying, nor the image on my t-shirt that I was wearing all the time. Looked nothing like that. Instead, his arms were extended out and he was like, ah! And I think you get to see like the glow of his insides. He was totally frightened. And that scared the shit out of me. Okay? I stood up all in one motion and I pointed my little finger at the screen and out loud I said, nope. Nope. And then I started pushing my way across the line of knees in our row, including my mom's, who was dying laughing, trying to get our smuggled snacks back into her purse and, catch up behind me because I made my way through all the way up the dark aisle towards the doors. And the entire time I just kept saying, nope, nope. I wasn't having it. No. And years later, I saw the film in its entirety, and I fell in love with it for all the reasons that we all do. E.T. is wonderful, but my first experience, not so much. The second film I ever saw in the theater was The Karate Kid. Not much later after E.T. And that is an experience I wrote about to share with you in tonight's episode. Spoiler alert, At one point in the episode, I do attempt to sing, and it's not good. So don't feel bad about cringing. I already know that, okay? So, hey, let's just get into it. Let me see where I'm at here. Tonight's piece is a section of an essay from my larger set of essays, Growing Up Large. Since I'm not reading the entire piece, I'm going to quickly set this up for you. Okay, it takes place in 1983. My dad had just returned home from the hospital after having a massive heart attack and was struggling to get acclimated at home. My sister Kathy and her husband David were living in Southern Illinois after just graduating college. When Kathy and David were dating and returned home here and there during their college years, I nicknamed him my other brother. Knocking on the glass of our living room window, I would say, "There's Kathy and my other brother," as they would drag their bags up our walkway speckled with a late autumn snow, starving for Thanksgiving dinner. They offered to have me stay with them to give my parents time to focus during this delicate phase of my dad's recovery. So the 6-year-old me spent 3 weeks of summer, hours away from home with Kathy and David, my other brother from another mother. Kathy and David lived with purpose. In pursuit of civil rights for the underdogs and outcasts, they devoted their time. They attended meetups and rallies, using their voices to speak up for those who had been silenced by the unfortunate reality of the current government and the environment. They, along with some friends, scrounged and saved money to purchase a bus for transporting people to an upcoming protest against the discrimination of Native Americans. Unfortunately, when it arrived with no seats, it became illegal to carry passengers in it, rendering the bus useless and serving as a daily reminder of a mission that wouldn't be accomplished. Unaware of the discouragement it symbolized, the bus was one of my favorite places. It became a game to step up into it and run to the rear door, touch it, and run back to the front, trying to beat the previous day's seconds ticking in my mind. With hands on each side of the giant steering wheel, I often drove imaginary children to school while they stood and sang songs that only I could hear. In the evenings, I wandered around the empty inside, catching lightning bugs that illuminated my cupped hands before I let them go freely through windows left half opened. "I wanna go home," I whispered into my soaked hands. The metal of the stairs stung my legs as the afternoon sun woke up. I saw David approaching through my fingers. "There you are. Oh no, what's the matter?" he asked. I wiped tears away with the outer part of my hands as fresh ones replaced them, while doing my best to catch my breath. "I wanna go home." David knelt down at my level to offer sympathy. "I'm so sorry, sweetie, but..." I interrupted his kind tone, chopping it with a sharp, defensive, "I want to go home." His eyebrows narrowed, shadowing his eyes, seeing me through a different light. I was a very shy, quiet child. I rarely spoke out or demanded anything. So he calmly began, "Well, Kathy should be home any..." "No!" I interrupted him again. "I want to go home now," with my hand extended as if I was stopping traffic. With his hand wrapped around his chin, he thought about it. "How about..." But my dead stare and head-shaking no killed whatever idea he was about to express. "Ooh. Oh, geez, okay. Oh, boy," he stammered, now back on his feet. He paced and tugged on his ponytail, almost as if he was trying to remove it or magically pull an idea from it. He looked back at the house, his hands on his hips to ground himself, then turned back in my direction, searching beyond me for the great distance to provide an answer. The acres of bright green grass and weeping willows silenced in sorrow. He pointed to the sky, and in one swoop of surrender, knelt back down, his hands braced to the tops of my keds. "Sweetie pie, how would you like to go to McDonald's?" he softly asked. I considered. My crying ceased a bit. Sweet Lord, I hoped he meant the place with the golden M, pronounced McDonald's, in my Chicago hometown. The mere thought of a cheeseburger wrapped in that yellow paper was closer to getting home than where I was, which was perched on the stairs of a school bus diagonally parked across their front lawn. "Okay," I agreed. "Far out!" He rose, straight like electricity moved through his limbs. I waited by the car while he ran inside to get the keys. We backed away from the gravel driveway and headed forward down the country road. I spun my lever, lowering my window. The breeze turned to full wind through the car as we picked up speed. The gas gauge needle teetered between E and really E. David turned the radio volume up and joined in. "How many roads must a man walk down before we can call him a man? How many seas must the white dove sail before she sleeps in the sands?" I swept my hair behind my ears and glanced at him through a wink, then turned back to the dashboard. David sang openly without insecurities. He had no concern for the other people now around us on the main road, and I knew that that was special, but it would take years to grow into my thoughts on why. My other brother was free. We arrived at McDonald's and parked in the lot. That golden M reflected hope in my eyes while David took a few minutes to gather change from the cup holder and the floor, even under his seats, calling out, "Well, all right," and "far out," with each coin found. Soon enough, we each had a burger and a small pile of fries between us at the table. I swiveled my chair out and back again towards the table in between bites. This meal was outside the normal menu of what we had been eating. Kathy and David had organic, locally made food in their home. None of the jelly jars ever read Smuckers. As a matter of fact, there wasn't recognizable labels, if any labels at all, on their food. Everything was earthy and healthy. The deliciousness of the sodium-filled meal we were eating bonded us outside the parameters of their beliefs. Each dip of every fry into the little mountain of ketchup was a nod of great thanks for being heard, because sometimes dancing outside the rules is the closest we come to going home. "Hey, we can't forget this," he said, while rapidly brushing crumbs between his hands. David slid a piece of paper from under his tray. I held the edge of the table and seized my swivel backwards. It was a black and white sketch of a mouse holding a burger, the likeness of Mickey Mouse. He also opened a small box of crayons provided and spilled them out on the table. We colored in the image, taking turns and passing the paper back and forth to one another until we completely finished it. David then went up to the counter to return the crayons. I watched as he handed our artwork over to the cashier. She smiled, turned it over, and wrote something down on the back. The next evening, at the house, Kathy was folding laundry she had hung to dry in the yard that morning. She was standing before her neat piles of T-shirts and pillowcases that soon took over the whole couch. David sat across from her, strumming his guitar to keep up with Leadbelly, making his way through the static and out of the speakers. I was in the kitchen, sitting at the table, building small houses out of dominoes, occasionally knocking them over, only to restart the process. The phone rang and jarred us all out of our states of mind. "I'll get it," Kathy said, while walking past me to where the phone hung on the kitchen wall. I'm certain she and I both shared thoughts. It could be news from home, possibly about Dad. "Hello," she said into the receiver. "Yes, he does." Oh, you're kidding. Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's really great," she said, looking over at me, her mouth wide open and eyes dancing with delight. "Okay. Thanks so much. I'll tell him." When she hung up, she hurried to David, and they whispered too softly for me to hear. "Far out! Jump back, Jack!" David yelped while jumping to his feet, his guitar now swinging across his stomach. They hugged and turned towards me. David then started walking my way. "How would you like to go back to McDonald's?" My eyebrows arched up as I looked at Kathy. She smiled and confirmed with a soft, "Yeah, uh-huh." This time, the cashier put an envelope on the tray next to our food. I noticed David didn't count coins before we went in. He actually handed over no money at all. Yet somehow there were 2 burgers, 2 piles of fries, and this time drinks on the tray. "Thank you so much," he said to the cashier, who smiled and then winked down at me. Before we took our tray to the table, David knelt down one more time to my level. His hand rested on my shoulder. "Do you notice anything up there?" he asked, and turned his head back behind the cashier. I scanned from the corner of the wall above the menu boards and noticed a line of those sketches taped in a row. Every one was the same mouse drawing holding the burger, yet each colored a little differently. I reached the middle, and there was ours. Across the top was an orange sticker cut in the shape of a small firecracker, and in the middle of the sticker, there were the words, "Winner." We had won a contest I wasn't even aware of. The free meal was only part of the reward. David told me we had to kind of hurry because there was another surprise place we were going. I gobbled up my winnings and didn't even waste time swiveling to and from the table. My eyes focused on that envelope the whole time. After dinner, we drove for a bit, passing grocery stores and shops, till we came across a parking lot that he slowly pulled into. I lifted myself up to peer over the dashboard and bounce up and down when spotting a marquee surrounded by bright white light bulbs. David held my hand as we walked through the parking lot and approached the window outside. The man behind the glass pushed a button while leaning into the microphone. "Hi there. Which show tonight?" "The Karate Kid," David answered into the tiny holes in the glass between us and him. David proudly slid 2 tickets from the envelope and placed them into the steel curve under the glass. The man tore off part and returned the stubs. David took the time to become a child with me instead of telling me not to act like one. He handled my homesickness with kindness. And that night we sat in an air-conditioned theater and enjoyed the journey of an outcast who overcame obstacles. The glow of the screen illuminated the profile silhouette of a hero, my other brother from another mother. This is as good a place as any to end this episode. My name is rooroosig, and I thank you for listening to The Story Chaser. Remember, there are stories everywhere. The key is to focus in on the little memories to find the bigger moments. My promise to you is that I'll keep chasing those stories. Be well, folks, and go ahead. Have a wonderful life.